I suggest you study this.
The views and opinions expressed on the Rosco Show are not necessarily those of Rosco. Assumptions made within this program are not reflective of the position of Rosco. Please do your own research when it comes to any and all information given on this program. Google is your friend.
أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم.
What's up, everybody, and welcome to the Rosco Show. I am Rosco, and I am actually not joined by the lovely Iris tonight, as Iris is not feeling so good. She's actually laying down right now. So yeah, if you guys can just kind of keep her in your thoughts, that would be awesome. We have a great show. We have a Muslim woman on the show. This is actually kind of big for me because I know a lot of the podcasts I listen to have always wanted to speak with a Muslim woman, or just a Muslim person in general, not necessarily a woman. And it's really hard for them to get these guests. I got one, so hurrah! Awesome. We talk about basically her conversion, or her, what does she call it, her reconversion into Islam. She was raised Catholic, which you'll find out more about that in the interview. We talk a little bit about Sharia law. We talk a little bit about planned marriages. We talk a little bit about the hijab, and all kinds of other stuff. So yeah, it's an awesome interview. Definitely. You'll notice that the format of the show has changed a little bit. We're going to try and make it a little bit shorter. 2 hours is a pretty long time. And I was literally clocking it out at exactly 2 hours. That was my goal. Now we're going to try for maybe an hour and a half, maybe an hour 45. I know it's not that much shorter. But, yeah, well, we'll see. We'll have to see how it goes. Yeah, so without further ado, let's get right into the interview with Melissa the Muslim. Check it out. I am here with Melissa, and where are you from, Melissa?
I am from Westfield, Indiana.
From Indiana?
Yeah.
So how the hell are you doing today?
I'm pretty good. Just got back from vacation on Thursday. We went out east to meet my brother who biked across the country, so just kind of getting back into life.
Oh, nice. So you are currently walking the path of Islam right now?
I am.
So you call yourself a Muslim then?
Yep.
Wow. Okay, perfect. So can you just tell me a little bit about your background?
Well, I grew up Catholic. My parents both were raised Catholic, married, raised us Catholic. It wasn't super serious. We went to church, fairly often, obviously always on the holidays and things like that. And when I was like a sophomore in high school or something like that, I decided to make my confirmation, which kind of made it more official. Although I hadn't really studied much of the Catholic faith, it was just kind of something that I was brought up with, so I just decided to go with it. And then, let's see, my sophomore year of college, which would have been like the turn of 2012, I kind of hit a really dark point in my life and realized I had just gotten to a place that I didn't want to be at, and I needed to get myself out. So I kind of just started on this spiritual journey, trying to figure myself out and figure out what I thought about life and who God was and all of those things. So I went to all sorts of different spiritual centers and churches, just kind of trying to find the right thing. And I kind of came to the conclusion that religion was just this way of controlling people, and it wasn't for me. I really wanted nothing to do with it. So I sort of became kind of a hippie, free love kind of person. And peace, love, and all of the virtues that you're going to find in religion, just without any type of like formalities, I guess. And then, let's see, it would have been like last summer, I kind of had another really dark period in my life in which I needed help out, and I didn't know how to do it. So I kind of gave my life over to God. I believed in God and a higher power at this point, just not in the context of religion. And from that point on, that would have been like last July, I guess, I just kind of had a series of synchronistic events and ended up being led just kind of internally to study Jesus a little bit more. So I did that, and I was doing that for like 4 months up until when I had studied or had Islam come into my life. I was kind of like over this kind of drug and party phase, and I wanted something more meaningful. So that was kind of like why I was hanging out at this particular church and going to these talks about Jesus. And I had come to the conclusion that Jesus was an awesome guy, but to me Christianity was not real, not the truth, I guess, but the Jesus, were to me. So I couldn't be a Christian, but I was feeling this longing to kind of be part of some type of spiritual community, and not just one online. I mean, you find all sorts of stuff online these days, groups and things like that. Like, I wanted something real. So then I met this friend of mine super spontaneously, and he just told me that he was Muslim, and I was like, oh, cool. And, I'd studied all this stuff. I was like, well, I might as well give this a try. So he gave me a book and a couple books in the Quran, and I started reading into it and reading a little bit more and watching YouTube videos and just all sorts of things. And I just had this overwhelming feeling come over me that this was the truth. I mean, it made perfect sense. All my studies of kind of like more ancient religion, Christianity and stuff had me to a point where I believed in prophecy. I believed in scripture and things like that, just not the way that mankind has kind of twisted it to fit certain agendas and things like that. So I decided to convert to Islam. I just knew, especially after I went through this website that I had found called MuslimConverts.com. You should check it out if anybody has interest. So yeah.
No, I'll definitely check that out. So have you read the Quran then?
I'm about halfway through it.
Okay. And have you read the Bible at all?
Bits and pieces of it, but I find it to be extremely confusing.
Oh, wow. More confusing than the Quran then, I take it.
Yeah, the Quran's really pretty straightforward. And one thing I really like about it hasn't been changed. In fact, they recently just discovered like an original text of it back from the life of the Prophet, and the text then is the same as the text is now. Whereas the Bible has gone through, all sorts of take out this book, take out that book, and it's not written from the same person.
Right. Oh, so the Quran was written by like one dude then?
Well, it was, it's an oral tradition, so I guess I'll give you a little brief history of where Islam came from?
Sure, let's do that.
Okay. So there was a man named Muhammad, peace be upon him, and he was 40 years old, and there was a cave that he would always go to. During this particular time, there was just a lot of really pretty awful things going on, like they'd leave female babies to die and just crazy barbaric stuff. So he'd go to this cave just to kind of get solace and pray to God and things like that. And one day he was met by an angel, Gabriel, who told him 3 times to start reciting, and he was an illiterate man, couldn't read or anything like that. So anyways, over this period of time, he started getting all of these revelations from this angel. And so he would recite it, and over time it was just recorded. So it's passed down orally. I mean, there's people all over the world that can recite the whole thing, if you can believe that.
Wow.
But it's written down as well.
Was this before or after the Bible had already been put into place? Or the I guess maybe not the Bible itself, but like the scriptures from the Bible?
This was after.
Okay. So that's why there's such a correlation between what you read in the Bible and what you read in Quran. Like, they're very similar, and in some cases there's like exact parallels.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and you'll find that in a lot of the spiritual texts, but Muslims I believe there's like 140,000 different prophets or something like that. So like Moses came down, was sent from God to deliver the 10 Commandments and his message, and then Jesus was, and then Muhammad is the final prophet.
Oh, wow. So they've had 144,000?
I believe it's 140,000.
140,000.
Yeah, over the course of time.
Oh, I was going to say 144. That number gets used a lot. Like, I know for Jehovah's Witnesses, they believe that only 144,000 people get into heaven. So,
really?
Yeah, that's what they believe.
Wow, that's a lot of people going to hell.
I know. So if I was a JW, I would be trying my damnedest. That's for sure. Yeah. I wouldn't even want anybody else to join. It's like, no, get out of here. You said that you tried some other spiritual paths before you found Islam. So can you kind of fill me in on what those were?
Yeah, so I gave Catholicism another fair shot. I was attending a university, and I decided to kind of throw myself into their Newman Center, which is kind of the Catholic student center, basically. And so I was hanging out with a lot of really devout Catholics, and they were like waking up super early and saying the rosary. And I spent a fair amount of time with, I believe she was like a tuba player who was considering becoming a nun. And so that was kind of an interesting thing. I always felt super uncomfortable in it, though. It just didn't feel right. So after giving that a fair shot, I left that. And part of the reason I did that is because I wanted to, be the same as my family, like anybody else does, just kind of have more things in common. But I didn't find truth in that. So then I just started dabbling more into like New Age spirituality. I had also looked into like spiritualism, Buddhism, pretty much you name it. I mean, not Jehovah's Witness or much of the Christian religions, aside from probably non-denominational Christianity. That's another one I gave a fair shot at. I grew up next to some really awesome non-denominational Christians, and they have great communities usually. But again, it wasn't authentic to me. I couldn't stay there.
I'm sorry. What about like the New Age? Do you find that, like with New Age spirituality, was there some things that you agree with and others that you disagree with, and then it just got to the point where you just said, I don't really believe any of this, or are there certain aspects of it that you might still agree with?
There are certain aspects of it that I agree with. I think it talks a lot about acceptance of all people, which is something I'm all for. It talks a lot about self-love, which, is an important thing, loving yourself and taking good care of yourself. But I felt there was like some sort of selfish element to it. It's also a lot about like self-empowerment, and seems to be like self-promotion and human being kind of as a small god.
Right. So you're not really giving worship to your creator. You're kind of like worshiping yourself. And
yeah.
Is that why you kind of had an issue with it?
Yeah, and I didn't even really wake up to this until I started comparing it to like Islam, and I started to see it a little bit more for what it was. And so this is kind of interesting. The final kind of thing that I was to study before I converted to Islam was the yogic path. So I had realized that I needed something a little more formal. I wanted something like a lifestyle, like a spiritual lifestyle. So instead of just like peace and love and all those things, like an actual practice that is applicable to my life, just to keep me a little bit more grounded and a little more consistent in my lifestyle and things like that. So I signed up for a yoga teacher training, and that would have been last fall that I signed up for that. And I left, I believe, June 10th, and on June 12th, I converted to Islam. I ended up only staying in the yoga teacher training program for like a little over a week and a half before I actually dropped out of it to fully immerse myself in the study of Islam. And at that time, that whole week and a half, I got like an entire crash course on like the history of yoga and of Eastern spirituality and of Hinduism and what deities are and all of this stuff, which was super fascinating. So I was kind of doing like a comparative religion thing at the time, and my heart was just so not in it. So.
Oh, yeah. Wow. Oh, okay. I'm sorry, I have to bring this up. You said that when it came to like New Age spirituality, they're really big on like acceptance of all people, and that you're really big into that. From what I hear of Islam just in the media, and I guess just through the media, is there's certain things that they're not accepting of. So would you kind of go against that, or would you kind of disagree with what I even just said there?
Well, Islam, pardon, is a belief system. So obviously there is going to be some like, I think I'm right and you're wrong kind of thing as far as like your belief system. But Islam is a tolerant religion, and it's not our place to judge a person. We just have this information and people can do what they will with it, and that's kind of God's place to judge. It talks about acceptance of all people. In fact, when the Quran came down, the two kind of predominant religions were the Jews and the Christians, and those were considered people of the book. And the Prophet, was instructed people to leave these people alone, allow them to continue doing what they're doing, kind of thing. Islam was sent to basically help, I don't want to say eradicate, but like there was a lot of polytheism at the time. So like different tribes were worshiping like multiple gods or like statues and things like that. So it was kind of delivered as a way to say like, hey, there's only one God.
Right. And that's kind of how Christianity was looking at it too, right? Like, yo, there's only one God, so don't be worshiping like golden calves and things like this.
Right.
The creators of South Park are being threatened with possible assassination because their show included a representation of the Prophet Muhammad. Here's a clip from that episode.
You said you wanted we got him for you.
We have no way of knowing if is really in there. It could be a trick. It's no trick, dude. My friend and I went to the Super Best Friends and brought him here. Then have him step out of the bear costume. You have until the count of 10. 1.
Don't do it, Randy. If seen, we could get bombed.
2.
Idiot. If he isn't seen, we're about to definitely get bombed.
3.
All right, stop. We'll do what you say. I'm sorry. Will you please step out of the bear costume?
Okay. Fair, unfair, funny, what? 10.
Well, I don't think any of us can say anything about anything to do with Islam. I don't think you're allowed to say it. I think it's too dangerous. And I think when people like Matt and Trey, who are some of the best writers and the most talented people alive today, are threatened like that, everybody should be very, very scared. It says nothing about Matt and Trey. It only speaks to Islam.
Rachel?
Wow. Well, my opinion is a little bit different. I feel like, well, first of all, the guys that are watching the Muslim revolution, right?
Yeah.
I mean, if they're gonna turn on South Park and they're gonna watch it, they should kind of know what they're getting into. It's not, it's as if they're equal. Exactly. So I feel like if you're going to watch the show,
but I believe they believe that the very existence of that is an affront to their religion. It's not the question that they don't want to see it. It's not a question of taste. It's a question of morality. Isn't that what they're claiming?
Right, but then they should go after every organization or every comic that's ever said anything and threatened to kill them.
They plan to.
Which, right, but
Let's
I
ask
think it's a
Mr.
little bit too
McFarland's
serious.
thoughts.
I mean, look, it's no secret. I think any combination of angry plus deity equals nuts, equals danger. The question becomes, at what point is it worth it? At what point is it worth it for them to, put themselves at risk? Like, is the joke so hilarious that we want to risk our lives? And that's, I don't know. If I were in that situation, honest, I don't know how I would react.
But they certainly have other ways. Trey and Matt can get laughs doing anything at all. Mm-hmm. They are the best among us. So it's not a question of doing it for the laugh. There is a moral element to this.
But didn't also Comedy Central then step in and sort of monkey around with that episode in a way that they were unaware of when they put it on the air?
I don't think anyone knows yet.
Is that
there's no way to tell. There's no way to know. If it were me and I was in this situation, it was like, well, is this worth getting shot?
Right.
Is it the funniest joke anyone's ever written?
But
okay,
did they know
if
that
Fox,
going
if you
in?
want to
Do you
censor
think that
this,
they knew that going in?
I believe it's in the Quran.
No,
I believe that information is available.
No,
that you're not supposed to do that.
But do you think that they really thought that this would be something that would be that their life would get threatened? I mean, I think if they,
why would they do something that would
right?
threaten
I
them?
think obviously they wouldn't do it.
But
I think that they were like,
I don't know about that. When you do something with a strong, I think you cheapen Matt and Trey's morality, strength, and courage when you say, is the joke worth it? Because the question is, what is morally right? And as strong as the religious side is in believing what's morally right, Matt and Trey have the strongest moral compass I know, and they are very, very good men.
Let's not get
and what they're doing is from their heart. No, I really do. I think that's very true.
Ready? Top 10 things I wish everyone knew about Islam by Martin Oliver, who is not a Muslim. This can be found on faithstreet.com, and that's where I'm going to be reading right from. You ready? Number 1. The Quran is to Jesus as Muhammad is to the Bible. Too often, people make this error of analogy. The Quran is to the Christian Bible as Muhammad is to Jesus. In fact, something like the opposite is the case. For Muslims, the Quran, especially in its recited form, is an incarnation of God on earth and is thus not just a book, nor even a holy text deserving of respect. Instead, it is God's word in the proverbial flesh. Interesting. Number 2, Muslims love Jesus. And love is spelled with all capital letters, so they must really love him to spell love like that. Love. While Muslims do not hold that Jesus was divine in and of himself, he is considered a prophet of high standing, born to a virgin named Mary who delivered a revelation to the Jewish people. For many Muslims, especially those of the mystical Sufi variety, Jesus is a close second only to Muhammad in terms of honor, and Jesus is believed to be the Al-Masih, or the Messiah, who will come again to usher in the end of times. He is popularly referred to as Ruh Allah, or the Spirit of God. So there you go. Muslims believe that Jesus is the Spirit of God. Awesome. Number 3, most Muslims are not Arab. While you might know that Indonesia is, by popular count, the largest Muslim nation, the next 3 are Pakistan, India, and Bangladesh. Wow. I thought Saudi Arabia was like... I thought it was the... Whatever, either way. Egypt rounds out the top 5, but to consider Egyptians as Arab is somewhat debated. Saudi Arabia, on the other hand, has only the 16th largest Muslim population, behind countries such as Uzbekistan, Ethiopia, Turkey, and Iran. Okay, that's probably where I got it from. For what it's worth, Saudi Arabia's Muslim population is roughly equivalent to China's. All of this should make us reconsider how we perceive not only Islam, but also the locus of its power and influence. While the Saudi government routinely casts itself as the protector and defender of the faith, they represent only a small fraction of the world's Muslims. Oh, there you go. So, is Saudi Arabia kind of like, is it kind of like the Vatican of Islam? I don't know. Number 4. Islam is not a religion of peace. And in brackets, he writes, I'm going to catch some hell for this. Well, probably. But wait, neither is it a religion of violence, or the heinous acts ISIS gins up hoping to generate YouTube views and goads the United States into war. While I laud former President George W. Bush for his helpful PR announcement following 9/11, it's a conceptual error to think of, indeed any, religion as inherently peaceful or inherently barbaric. Instead, as is the case with any religious tradition, a vast majority of Muslim people are peace-loving, and there are a few really bad apples. But we all know that one bad apple ruins the whole batch. That was from me, by the way. Number 5. Islam does not think, believe, teach, or command anything. This is another conceptual problem. There is no embodied Islam out there giving orders, just as there is no Buddhism or Taoism or Jainism giving conflicting advice. Religions are things, quote, things, only in an abstract academic or theological sense, what the great Wilfred Cantwell Smith calls the reified concept of religion. Interesting. Number 6. Allah is not the name of the Muslim God. Really? Well, let's see what he has to say about this, because I'm pretty sure that that's what they call their God. It says, let me break this down. Technically, Arabic has no capital letters, so the word Allah, second al, is a prefix definitive article meaning the. So al means the. The root word la just means God. Thus, Allah translates simply to the God. Wow. Number 7. Islam as a word means to submit or surrender. That's interesting. You know what? I'm not even going to read this. Just take it for what it is. Islam is a word that means to submit or to surrender. Number 8. Sharia ought not be a scary word. After all, it just means legal reasoning or canonical law. There are at least 5 classical schools of Sharia, including the Shiites, and they differ radically in their relationships to both sources of authority and interpretive methods. For example, the Quran enjoins one not to be drunk when you pray, not to get drunk, and not to drink fermented dated wine. So, what of cold beer? It likely won't get you drunk, nor is it made from dates. Cold beer won't. Is it allowable? Sharia is the means by which the question gets answered, and those answers may vary from no alcohol whatsoever to quite literally no dated wine that leads to drunkenness. Across the Muslim world, you'll find the whole spectrum of positions. We actually talk about that in the interview. So I guess some Muslims interpret it differently than others. Some Muslims think it's okay to drink wine as long as you don't get drunk. Other Muslims say you're not allowed to consume alcohol at all. Interesting. I guess it's however you read it. Number 9. The Sunni/Shiite division is very old and often overblown. It's important to know that there are doctrinal divisions within the tradition, and that Sunnis, roughly meaning consensus of the people, and Shiites, meaning the party of Ali, are the two main groups. There are numerous others, however, and even within one group, there are further, perhaps innumerable divisions. A Sunni Muslim in Detroit might approach his or her faith very differently from a Sunni in Morocco, who differs again from Sunnis in Beirut, or Paris, or Cape Town, or whatever. You got that, right? Yeah, okay. Number 10. This one's interesting, and actually, I just learned this the other day from my friend at work, John June, who, by the way, I want to let you know that my friend John June, he helped me with coming up with the questions for the interview. I figure I'll just throw that in there, so props to you, John. Number 10. Muslims invented modern physics, mathematics, and medicine. Okay, so put it this way. Muslims invented modern physics, mathematics, and medicine. You know, I don't really read these over before I come in here, because when I'm reading them, I want to be surprised, kind of like, you know, live. I don't want to like jump ahead and read it and then come on, and you know, I want my reactions to be real. So yeah, there you go. So that is the top 10 things that I wish everyone knew about Islam. Not that I wish everybody knew about Islam, but that Martin Oliver, the guy who wrote the article, he wishes that everybody knew this about Islam. Yeah, interesting. Well, guys, we're going to get into a quick commercial break, and when we come back, we'll be getting into more of the interview that we had with Melissa the Muslim. Cool shit, right? Stick around.
Here's an excerpt from Nailed by David Fitzgerald.
Didn't there have to have been a Jesus? Perhaps he was just a wandering teacher or an exorcist, an apocalyptic prophet or a zealot who opposed the Romans. Perhaps he was all these things, or even a composite of several such early first-century figures. But at any rate, surely there had to be somebody at the original core of Christianity, arguably the most famous individual in human history. All this seems to be a perfectly reasonable, completely natural assumption to make, so why would anyone be so foolish as to propose that Jesus never existed? Doesn't it just make more sense to assume that there was a historical Jesus, even if we're unable to recover the real facts about his life and death? As it turns out, no. The opposite is true. The closer we look at the evidence for Jesus, the less solid evidence we find, and the more we find suspicious silences and curious resemblances to the pagan and Jewish religious ideas and philosophies that preceded Christianity. And once you begin to parse out the origins of this tradition or that teaching from their various sources, the sweater begins unraveling quickly until it becomes very difficult to buy that there ever was, or even could have been, any historical figure at the center.
Nailed by David Fitzgerald is now available at atheistaudiobooks.com.
Bit heavy on the fake tan, hey, Carrot?
Oh, good one, spinach.
I'm not spinach.
Spinach.
Guys, it's about what's on the inside.
Sorry, Carrot.
Sorry, celery.
Fruit makes veggies nicer.
At a time,
in a place, in a world, millions have suddenly vanished, and no one knows why. What is behind this mystery? Is it man? Is it evil? Is it God? Stay on top of the breaking news with your KUSA 9 News and 9 team, your podcast leader in investigative journalism.
Find out more information about the Atheist Apocalypse podcast at atheistapocalypse.com, baby.
This time, it's for Snarius.
I'm Rachel Nannon Brown, and you're listening to The Rosco Show.
So you said that your parents were brought up as Catholics.
Mm-hmm.
So are they aware that you've converted to Islam?
Yeah, they are.
What's their feelings on that?
Well, I kind of introduced it to them slowly, and it's not really slowly, but, you know, I converted quickly, let's just say that. But I told them immediately when it came to me and that I was studying this, and I kept them up to date on how fascinated I was with it and how much it was starting to really resonate with me on such a deep level. And then I told them about it, and they were very accepting. Obviously, they had some questions and concerns. But my parents are pretty open-minded, accepting people, so I'm really blessed in that regard. This might be a good segue into hijab, unless you have further questions about the path to Islam. But my mom has definitely had some trouble with the wardrobe change, dressing more modestly and making that transition into wearing a head cover in public has been a little hard for her. She's more of a private person and doesn't like a lot of attention drawn to her and doesn't quite get the whole spirit of that particular part of the practice.
Well, I'm not going to lie. I don't get that spirit of the particular practice either. So can you explain to me why is it that Islamic women have to wear these hijabs in public?
Well, I will first start by saying that pretty much all religion, well, Christianity and Judaism, like at the beginning, that was part of their thing too.
Yep.
All religious women covered their hair, pretty much, or they were supposed to. And over time, there's been a lot of dilution and alteration and human influence on what was originally a pure type thing, you know, straight from the prophet, straight from Jesus, straight from Moses, or what have you. Islam has kept hijab, the practice of head covering, in its religion, and that's considered basically something you're obligated to do. The whole spirit of it is, so the main idea is, so women are obviously beautiful creatures. They're kind of God's most beautiful creatures, and men are very attracted to them. So covering up kind of helps with that, the whole modesty thing. Just you're being able to be seen more for like what's on the inside. You know, you see people all around, and I was totally one of those people just dressed like in super tight yoga pants and like short skirts. There's literally nothing left to the imagination. So that's kind of how people are attracted to you. But, you know, if you're covered up, people are sort of forced to see the inside of you.
Wow.
And the other thing is it's preserving kind of the sacredness and the specialness of the bond of marriage. So the only person that can see the woman is the husband, and then family members as well. So it's kind of romantic, really, but there's some, yeah.
Yeah, you know what? The way that you put it there, it actually is very beautiful. So, have you had, like, so when you go out in public, you do wear the hijab?
Well, let's say I'm not doing it full time yet. I have worn it out many times, but it's been a big adjustment for me. And the short answer is it's something I should be doing immediately all the time, but I'm not. It's obviously a big transition. I have to switch out my wardrobe. I haven't graduated from college yet. I don't have a ton of money.
Okay, so have you had any reactions from people? I know you said that sometimes they might seem a little bit uncomfortable around you when you're wearing it. Has anybody ever said anything or been discriminative or anything along those lines?
No, people have really been nice about it. My roommate totally poked fun at me at first.
But yeah,
he was super nice about it too.
Awesome. Where do you live? Indianapolis?
I live in Fort Wayne, actually. I'm up there doing school.
Wow. Okay. Awesome.
That's another thing I got to figure out. I'm about to finish my last semester of nursing school, so you know, once I start my career, it's like, do I wear a hijab? Do I not? Yeah. I mean, I'm going to. That'll be a whole nother bridge to cross.
If you get a job, because I know in the States recently they've had some issues with women wearing hijabs at work only because of certain dress codes and like. So what is your opinion on that? Do you think that these employers have the right to tell Muslim women that they have to take off their hijabs?
I don't think they should have the right to do that. For most of the women, for myself personally, I mean, it's not just this like public display. It's like, it's a very personal, like beautiful, intimate thing. It's a part of your faith, which is, you know, a deep thing in someone's heart. And to ask them to take that away is, I think, very unfair.
Not that I am religious in any way, shape, or form, but I think if it's something as small as that, and it's just, you know, it's somebody's religious belief, and it's not that big of a deal, it's like, who cares? Like, in my opinion, just let them wear it. Here's an interesting question. How familiar were you with Islam before you converted to it? Did you just kind of know what you saw on TV and stuff like that, or Did you know anything about it before you started researching it?
Not really. I mean, I was open to it. I wasn't one of those people who was like, oh, those people are terrorists or anything like that. But it was just not in my sphere. It wasn't even like something I thought about at all. I didn't even consider looking at it, actually.
Oh, wow. So you never found yourself judging Muslim people before you started researching it?
Well, I will admit, after 9/11, I remember being in the airport and I saw somebody with a turban on or something like that, and I was just like really freaked out by it. But yeah, no.
That's like the only instance. But I think that's kind of like them putting xenophobia into people to begin with. That's just the media basically trying to say, like, you need to look out for these type of people because they're the ones who, you know, blew up the World Trade Centers. But, you know, it was a skinny white guy that went into that church and shot people. So there's, you know, there's idiots of all race, color, sizes, and genders. So what is your opinion on planned marriages?
All right. That's an interesting question. So I did not understand this. And actually, marriage is one of the first things I dove into because it's considered like half of your deen, half of your religion. So to say like, oh, you have to marry this guy, you have to marry this girl, not for it. I can explain a little bit like the idea behind an arranged marriage if you'd like.
Sure.
Okay. So Islam is, okay, let's see. The idea is to kind of preserve the integrity of the family units, the culture, and the culture, I would say. So say you have like one big town or something like that, and you've got some really awesome families, and this family wants to make sure that their daughter marries a man that comes from a family of equal values, that share equal values and that, you know, practice the true religion and, you know, work hard and things like that. So it's like, okay, we have this family and this family and this family and this family. And this is the first interview I've ever done. I'm getting
not a problem.
Okay. So yeah, that's basically the idea. So in America, we kind of just date, you find someone, you hook them up at the bar, and blah, blah, blah. In Islam and in this kind of arranged marriage thing, it's like the families have something to do with who their child is married off to. So the families all meet each other and make sure that it's just a good fit, basically.
Okay. Do you think that the woman has the right to basically say, no, I don't want to marry this guy?
Yeah, they absolutely do. I know they do. And if the father says that, you know, the woman can't have a say in it, then he's doing it wrong. That's not included.
Oh, wow.
You have every right to say no. It's important that there's, like, physical attraction between the people and that there's, like, you know, just chemistry on a basic level. So
that's not going against the Quran if the woman refuses the marriage then?
No, not at all. Not at all. In fact, women's rights are, like, hugely important and emphasized in true Islam.
Would you comply then if your parents were Muslim? Would you trust their judgment, and would you go along with the planned marriage, or would it depend on the circumstances?
Yeah, I mean, so how it would kind of work would be like my parents knew another family who had an available guy who was looking for someone to marry, and they would kind of arrange that, and we would meet in like a setting that was not like alone or something like that, you know, like in a public setting or something. And, you know, we'd get to know each other a little bit. And if we felt like we were attracted to each other and had enough in common and things like that, then you'd say yeah. And if you didn't feel that way, then say no.
Wow. Okay. Perfect. So would you ever consider visiting like a quote Muslim country just to see how their customs might be different from the customs in America? I mean, when it comes to Islamic people anyways.
Yeah, I would absolutely love to. I know there's some countries, so like my parents, my neighbors here, like Iran, I guess, is not the best place to go right now for a white person.
I wouldn't recommend that, no.
But I think there are some other countries that, yeah, I would definitely love to visit just to see what it's like to be around a ton of Muslims, because obviously I'm a huge minority here.
Right. Do you think it would be very similar to the customs in the States, or do you think it might be like, you know, way more extreme. It'd be like a Catholic going to visit the Vatican. You know what I mean? Of course, there's going to be some differences there as opposed to here.
I have no idea. I've never been there. I've read a little bit, and I've tried to kind of study up on everything that's going on in the Middle East, and that's obviously a huge mess, kind of. But I know there's certain areas where you have like a mix of Jews and Christians and Muslims kind of all together, so it's not totally isolated or segregated.
Wow, that I don't know. That would be I don't know.
If anyone thinks that there's a question, who's heard me, who thinks there's a question I answered poorly, or inadequately, or badly, or failed to answer at all, and would like to challenge me, I'd happily give them 5 minutes. But I have, so to say, shot my bolt otherwise. Is there anyone who would like to challenge me? Yes. Please.
If there is no God, why do you spend your whole life trying to convince people that there isn't? Why don't you just stay home?
Can you repeat that?
Was the question?
The question is, if there is no God, why spend your life and career trying to refute that? Why not just leave it alone and stay home? Fair enough.
Well, it isn't my whole career, for one thing. It's become a major preoccupation of my life, though, in the last 8 or 9 years, especially since September 11, 2001, to try and help generate an opposition to theocracy and its depredations internationally. That is now probably my main political preoccupation. To help people in Afghanistan, in Somalia, in Iraq, in Lebanon, in Israel, resist those who sincerely want to encompass the destruction of civilization and sincerely believe they have God on their side in wanting to do so. Maybe I will take a few minutes just to say something that I find repulsive about especially monotheistic messianic religion. With a large part of itself, it quite clearly wants us all to die. It wants this world to come to an end. You can tell the yearning for things to be over whenever you read any of its real texts or listen to any of its real, authentic spokesmen, not the sort of the pathetic apologists who sometimes masquerade for it. Those who talk, there was a famous spokesman for this in Virginia until recently, about the rapture, say that those of us who have chosen rightly will be gathered to the arms of Jesus, leaving all of the rest of you behind. If we're in a car, it's your lookout. That car won't have a driver anymore. If we're a pilot, that's your lookout. That plane will crash. We will be with Jesus, and the rest of you can go straight to hell. The eschatological element that is inseparable from Christianity. If you don't believe that there is to be an apocalypse, there is going to be an end, a separation of the sheep and the goats, a condemnation, a final one, then you're not really a believer. And the contempt for the things of this world shows through all of them. It's well put in an old rhyme from an English exclusive brethren sect. It says that we are the pure and chosen few, and all the rest are damned. There's room enough in hell for you. We don't want heaven crammed. You can tell it when you see the extreme Muslims talk. They cannot wait. They cannot wait for death and destruction to overtake and overwhelm the world. They can't wait for what I would call, without ambiguity, a final solution. When you look at the Israeli settlers, paid for often by American tax dollars, deciding that if they can steal enough land from other people and get all the Jews into the promised land and all the non-Jews out of it, then finally the Jewish people will be worthy of the return of the Messiah. And there are Christians in this country who consider it their job to help this happen so that Armageddon can occur, so that the painful business of living as humans and studying civilization and trying to acquire learning and knowledge and health and medicine and to push back can all be scrapped, and the cult of death can take over. That, to me, is a hideous thing in eschatological terms, in end times terms, on its own. A hateful idea, a hateful practice, and a hateful theory, but very much to be opposed in our daily lives, where there are people who sincerely mean it. who want to ruin the good relations that could exist between different peoples, nations, races, countries, tribes, ethnicities, who openly say they love death more than we love life, and who are betting that with God on their side, they're right about that. So when I say, as the subtitle of my book, that I think religion poisons everything, I'm not just doing what publishers like and coming up with a provocative subtitle. I mean to say it infects us in our most basic integrity. It says we can't be moral without Big Brother, without a totalitarian permission. It means we can't be good to one another. It means we can't think without this. We must be afraid. We must also be forced to love someone who we fear. The essence of sadomasochism. The essence of abjection. The essence of the master-slave relationship. And that knows that death is coming and can't wait to bring it on. I say this is evil. And though I do some nights stay home, I enjoy more the nights when I go out and fight against this ultimate wickedness and ultimate stupidity. Thank you.
So the podcast is changing. To my previous listeners who've listened to the first 15 episodes, or the first 14 episodes, my bad. See, this is why I need Iris here. She knows all the episode numbers and all the guests and all that stuff. You figure I would, being the host and all, but... Anyways, you'll notice that the podcast has changed a little bit. It's a new format, trying to condense things a little bit more. I'm actually taking people's reviews and suggestions into account, which, you got to try and keep the fans happy. I only do this podcast really to keep myself happy, but if I have nobody listening, then, what's the point, right? But there's a couple things that we're not getting rid of. As you'll notice, there was no Roscoe's Bible reading, which I don't think people like those anyways. But we're still doing one at the end of the show, so you can suck it. But, of course, the one fun-loving individual that I refuse to get rid of from this podcast is the one and only Pastor J. Check it out.
Hey folks, Pastor J here from Know the Truth. One of my most favorite pastimes is taking everything too seriously, as any pastor would. You name it, I'll probably make things awkward by inciting a debate. Hot dogs versus hamburgers, Jell-O versus pudding, Aniston versus Angelina, Roe versus Wade, and all churches versus my church. I will make shit very uncomfortable due to my intellect and knowledge of all things. That's why I love Facebook. With Facebook, you have laymen debating complicated issues like politics, human rights, animal rights, the right to eat meat or not, should cops wear cameras and a lot more guns, is the dress blue or white. See, it's like a breeding ground for all that is bad in the world. You log in as a sane person, and you end up leaving a miserable shell of what you used to be. In fact, you ultimately become the perfect target for me to preach to, or to debate, but mostly preach and debate. Now, I'm not promoting the cesspit that is Facebook. I'm secretly stating that in order to live a godly life, you must stay off of Facebook at all costs. But if you insist on going there and want to be at risk of FBI raids, I'll give you some non-godly Facebook types and how to spot them. Now, this is going to be the first video where I'll ramble incoherently like Josh Fierstein, so please bear with me.
Hey guys, how are you? Why are a lot of atheists so mean? If you had an evolutionist / humanist worldview, what you want to be is kind of considerate to humanity as a whole as possible, help everything evolve in a positive direction. It just seems like they get so mean about it.
Alright, quick update. During the intro, I got a call from my friend, and he told me that he wanted to chime in on this Facebook talk that I'm giving. So I'm going to give you my 72 reasons why Facebook doesn't fit into a godly lifestyle, and why most people on Facebook are scum of the earth. And in a following video, he'll give you 60 more reasons why Facebook Alright, the first person on my list of Facebook people you need to avoid is the intellectual atheist. To all of you atheists that are going for their I'm gonna sound smarter than my peers, so I'm gonna use big words degree, just chill the fuck out for a minute. The fact is, most people check out after 2 or 3 of your brittle and rigid sentences. The rest of us see you as amateurish and trying too hard. Even intellectual atheists that have been around the block a few times don't even talk like that. Why? Because they don't like to regurgitate the same shit over and over again. In fact, after about a year, most atheists settle down from being angry at God all the time and just live out their normal heathenistic lives. In other words, they stop pushing their religion down our throats. Now, to be fair, it's not just atheists that act like this. There are many in my flock who are just as stupid, but because I'm a pastor, I'm obligated to make fun of atheists only. If you're still a little bit confused, just replace everything I said with Christians. That'll get you back on track. Just remember that no matter what you do, the smarter you appear, the less you'll be taken seriously. Treat every Facebook conversation as a dinner conversation as opposed to a formal debate, and people might start liking you some more. The subject matter is irrelevant. The second type of heathen to avoid is the vague boogers. Boogers. Look, I get it. Everybody wants attention. Everybody wants to have a bad day so they can get sympathy from their peers. Or better yet, let everyone know how bad they have it so they can get their 15 minutes of fame. Because sitting in front of your expensive computer in your cozy house is really rough. But come on, no one's gonna help you. But don't get me wrong, this has nothing to do with the fact that we would help except for we live miles and miles away. It has more to do with the fact that most of us are selfish narcissists and we only care about ourselves. There's a good chance that when any of us see a vague book comment, our thought process is fuck off and grow a pair. One last thing, if someone does comment on your post with something to the effect of, "Aw, I hope it gets better," it's most likely because they either want to fuck you or they're feeding you scraps of empathy so you don't go off and post something like,
"If you're on my friends list, you better like or comment or I'm going to delete everyone on here."
Or,
"You're not a true friend unless you pay attention to me."
Now that I think about it, most of you that post that shit, you're the most selfish and needy people on this planet. Go tell a homeless dude about all your problems. See if he or she will get where you're coming from. The third person on this list is the debater. Oh, nice. Somebody with an opinion. I know I kind of harped on this in example 1, but I have to be more specific. Now, I know most of you watching right now are going to blast through any Facebook issue and claim to be right about everything. And if you're me, you're probably right. But here's a secret for you. Whenever you stop everything you're doing in real life and take it upon yourself to engage in an actual debate with a Facebook friend, remember this. Nobody in the history of ever has stopped and said to themselves, "You know, you're right. Let me change my viewpoint." There might be some of those people, but they're just yes men. And those are people you want to stay away from. Them and those asshole friends that are simply there just to give you game requests. Now don't give me this bullshit line of, "We debate for the sake of other people." What have I been saying this whole time? No one cares about your life or your post to actually give a fuck about what you're saying. In the history of all debates ever on Facebook, only about 3 people have changed their mind. And these 3 people were probably already out the door with their former beliefs anyway. That line about debating for other people, don't fool yourselves. You just want your friends to see how many smarts you have. Don't forget, it's just Facebook and we only care about ourselves. Now with all that being said, I'm willing to bet that there are a few of you out there right now writing rebuttals in your stupid little notebooks. Let me just stop you right there. You're wrong and I don't care, so just save yourselves the hassle. Now the rest of you decided not to care and accept what I said blindly as fact. I applaud that. I encourage that. I make a living off of that. Not giving a fuck is a virtue I find in friends and in women that I'm pursuing. Look, Facebook isn't a debate playground. Leave that to professionals like William Lane Craig, Kent Hovind, Ken Ham, and Josh Fartstain. Those are the real debaters. To everyone else, keep your strength to aggressively creating drama or simply living in somebody else's drama. That's what Facebook was intended for. Now, this isn't the end of my campaign against Facebook or all the evil atheists that lurk within Facebook. I just need to stop here because my girlfriend has to go to bed soon and I have to shut off my computer. But keep the excite in your pants because pretty soon my deacon, Jay, will be adding to this video by making his own video and uploading it to this channel. Pretty soon, everyone will be part of this church. As always, thanks for your hard-earned money, your loyalty, and your women.
If atheists think that all there is this life, then why do they spend so much time on YouTube debating Christians?
I know before we did the interview, you said you didn't really want to talk about this too much, but just really quickly, can I just get your opinion on Sharia law?
Yes. I don't know a whole lot about it, so I'm not going to speak on something I'm not super familiar with. And the reason for that is I've just kind of... Do you hear dogs barking?
Yeah, it's cool.
All right, I'm at my parents' house. They have a couple dogs. But anyways, a lot of what I've been learning about Islam has been more like kind of personal and like application to my like internal sort of spiritual journey. And there's the part of Islam that deals with like all of society. That's the thing about Islam, is it's like all encompassing. It's for the individual, and it also gives instruction on how to have a marriage, how to run a family. It's like an entire lifestyle, and it's complete in what it addresses. So Sharia law, which true Muslims don't really refer to it as
Sharia law. Oh, okay.
Yeah, it's basically a justice system. So how to deal with issues as they arise in a society, and how to maintain order and seek justice. So I don't really know a ton more about that, like as far as detail goes, but I know that it can be very much exploited. And you see a lot of, obviously, terrorism and people doing things under the name of Islam that you question. You're like, what the heck? That seems absolutely awful. And that's because parts of the Quran and parts of Sharia law are taken out of context. So
I have heard that before, yes. When it comes to Sharia law, I just want to let my listeners know there's probably a lot of people out there right now wanting me to ask you like a dozen questions that I'm not going to. So, sorry guys. You're a very, very nice girl, and I know that there's a lot of people, especially in the United States and Canada where I'm from, that disagree with your religion. There's a lot of really terrible things and a lot of terrible questions that get asked, and I'm not going to do that.
I would just encourage people to kind of go about studying something that you're afraid of or that you have like negative opinions about without really having studied it. Just do it objectively. You know, try and find a good source. Try and understand the spirit of something and like why it is the way it is and what it is in its most true and authentic form. You know, anything can be taken and twisted and manipulated and still called what it is when it's really not what it is. If that makes sense.
No, very beautifully said, yes. What is your opinion on depicting images of Muhammad? I know in the last couple of years there's been some big controversies about it. So what is the deal there? I mean, why is it that Islam doesn't want their prophet depicted? 'Cause I just mean in correlation with like Christianity, you know, there's pictures of Jesus in churches and things like that. So
right.
So what's the difference there?
Well, okay, so I'll address the Christianity thing first of all. People look at Jesus as if he was like part of the Trinity of God, right? So he's like the Savior, so he is God. So people have this image of him and worship that. So in my studies of Christianity, which I was studying it for about 4 months, going to all these lectures and things like that from this man who'd been studying it himself for about 50 years from more of a mystical standpoint, although he was trying to figure out who Jesus really was too. So he gave him as the Christian Jesus a shot too. Ended up coming to the conclusion that Jesus was a prophet just like Muhammad, and Jesus never said, worship me. In fact, he said the opposite. He said, you know, I'm just like one of you. But anyways, the prophet was just a messenger, you know, he wasn't God. So having images of the prophet, I guess, and I don't know exactly what the issues have been because I haven't really studied what has come up with that in the past years. But basically the idea is to not over focus on Muhammad. Like, he's pointing to God. Right. And to not worship him because he's just a human. Not just a human. I mean, obviously he's a very important human. But yeah.
So if non-Muslims were drawing pictures of Muhammad, because there was actually like a national Draw Muhammad Day.
Really?
So, yeah, there was actually. And in Texas, there was people that got... You heard about that?
I think I did, yes. I did hear about it, but I didn't really delve too much into it.
Yeah, some people got pretty pissed off and brought some guns, and nothing good came of that. If that is the case, then shouldn't Muslims not really care about non-Muslims depicting Muhammad or drawing pictures of Muhammad? They're only doing it to piss off Muslims. That's the only reason they're doing it. They're not doing it for any other reason. So shouldn't they kind of just, you know, turn the other cheek, basically, when it comes to something like that?
You know, I can't really speak too much on it because I don't know the circumstances. For me, I mean, it's disrespectful. You know, obviously, Muslims don't draw pictures of Muhammad, and we try and keep it. Yeah, we just don't do that, and it's, like I said, disrespectful. But when these people are just acting in ignorance and being spiteful and things like that, I don't know. Just look past it. That's what I would do. But
right, yeah, exactly. That's what you would do. That's what most people should do. Yeah, awesome.
I would think, yeah.
Muslims are allowed to watch TV. Is that a stupid question? They're allowed to look into the media, and they're allowed to read other books and things like that, right? And look into other religions?
Mm-hmm.
Oh,
yeah,
okay.
It's actually encouraged. Obtaining knowledge is considered an act of worship, and Muslims are encouraged to thoroughly understand their religion and to, you know, seek elsewhere, basically, not just have blind faith.
Wow, so they're actually, like, encouraged to go and check out other religions, then you're saying?
Yeah, definitely. Obviously, the hope is that you stay with, at least for me, you know, if my child went out to go seek other religions, my hope would be they come back to this one because I believe it's the truth. But it's encouraged that each person kind of figure out the truth for themselves. And if they don't come to the conclusion that Islam is the truth, then, you know,
it's up to them.
About that. Right, absolutely.
So I'm sorry, do you actually have kids?
No, I don't.
Okay, if you did have a child and they decided that their truth was Buddhism or Christianity or even atheism, would you feel upset about that? Because, you know, you feel like you do have the truth with Islam. So would you try and convert them, or would you kind of just let them live their life?
I would seek guidance on how to handle that situation, probably from other Muslims. But other than that, you know, I would just continue to give them unconditional love and support as they try and find truth for themselves and pray about it. And, you know, you got to kind of leave it in God's hands at the end of the day, but I would never alienate them or anything crazy like that. My personal journey has been so much all over the place. I have a lot of compassion for people trying to find the truth. It can be a really confusing and difficult road. So.
Okay. And sorry, just one more thing. When you say find the truth, when you say the word truth, what is it that you're actually talking about? Are you talking about, like, God or life or creation or all of the above?
I would say truth for me is the reason that we're here and kind of what we're supposed to be doing here. And that's what I feel like I've found in Islam.
Wow, so what are we supposed to be doing here?
Worshipping God. Worshipping Allah.
Wow, and Allah, He does want worship, though. He does want praise.
Yes.
Okay.
And, yeah.
Okay, perfect. I'm not going to lie, I wish I did read the Quran. I tried listening. I actually have an audiobook of the Quran. However, I only listened to them at work, and I couldn't really follow along with it. So I kept skipping back, and finally it just got to the point where it's like, I can't even listen to this because I can't follow it, and if I can't follow it, there's no point in even trying. So, but that was my attempt anyways. If I would have...
to it in Arabic, or were you listening to it in English?
It was in English.
In English.
Yeah, and that's when I noticed there's a lot of parallels. I'm sorry?
I said Arabic might be hopeless. You can't understand that. That's a tough language.
Well, no, I mean, English is the only language I know, so, or Canadian English, as some people might say. But, so you guys are allowed to watch TV shows and movies and stuff like that. So,
yeah, it's encouraged to be mindful of what you watch. I will say that. And I haven't personally owned a television in 2 or 3 years now, so, and that's just a personal choice. I just don't particularly care for TV.
Man,
but
none of my guests own TVs. It's weird.
Really?
It seems like a lot of them say they don't watch TV or they don't own a television or, yeah. Okay, well, when you do watch TV, if you ever do, what's your favorite TV show? If you were sitting there on the couch and you could put on any TV show to watch, what would you pick?
Oh, man. So the last TV show that really caught my attention, I forget even what it's called, but it's basically about people who are living in Antarctica or like somewhere super high up in Alaska, and they like live in the middle of the wilderness off the land and all this crazy stuff. So I like to see people that are doing kind of extreme lifestyle type stuff.
Wow, is that like a reality show?
Yeah, it is.
That wasn't the Sarah Palin show, was it?
No. No, I think it's on like a TLC or something like that.
Huh, interesting. I'm sure somebody listening to this knows the name of it.
I also like Intervention. I used to watch a lot of that show.
I've seen that show, yeah. I know what that show's all about.
Yeah.
Yeah, that is very interesting. So what draws you towards that show? You said that you used to live like a partying lifestyle. Does that have anything to do with it?
I am fascinated by addiction and psychology and emotions and kind of how we deal with that as human beings. So I think that's probably what influenced it. Also, I used to live a pretty fun, slightly reckless life and did a lot of things that probably weren't the best for me. So yeah.
Well, Muslims are allowed to drink, right? They're just not allowed to become intoxicated?
Nope, we're not allowed to drink. Not at all.
Oh, really?
Uh-uh.
Okay, that's interesting because I literally watched a debate where there was a Christian debating a Muslim, and the Christian said that, oh man, I really wish I could remember this, but it had something to do with somebody in heaven making wine, or somebody... if I don't get this right, I'll just edit it out. But basically, he challenged the Muslim because he said there's wine in heaven, yet Muslims are not allowed to drink. And then the Muslim guy said, Muslims are allowed to drink, they're just not allowed to get intoxicated. And that was his defense towards that. So, does it actually say in the Quran that you're not allowed to consume alcohol?
I'm not sure about that.
Oh.
But I do know, okay, so there's a thing called halal and haram. And halal is things that are permissible, and haram are things that are not permissible. And it is my understanding that it is considered haram to drink alcohol because it can intoxicate you.
Oh, is that any intoxicants then, basically, are the latter?
I believe so. I'm not exactly sure on the stance of marijuana, but I gotta believe that it's a no-go. But I'm not sure. I'm personally not doing any of those things right now, so it's not super relevant to my life, so I haven't gotten into that, but I suppose it's something I should figure out and touch on, especially if I'm gonna have kids someday.
You know, for marijuana, a lot of people say that brings you closer to God, so...
Yeah, I could see. I mean, I've had some spiritual, quote, experiences within myself.
Right, or even, they did a test on psilocybin mushrooms, magic mushrooms, and something like 95% of the participants who came out after said that they felt more spiritual than they ever have. And for some of them, it altered the rest of their life, so... So maybe they should be, yeah, never mind.
We could totally go into that, maybe in another show.
Alright. We could. We'll have you back on. We'll just spend the whole hour talking about magic mushrooms.
Oh, yeah. All things psychedelics.
All right, the American Freedom Defense Initiative is the group that was hosting the contest in Texas to draw cartoons of the Prophet Muhammad that was apparently the target of these gunmen. The group's president, Pamela Geller, says she hopes to host more events like this. That is despite now these calls by ISIS for more attacks.
So joining us to talk more about the event, the shooting, and the threat following the vice president of the American Freedom Defense Initiative, Robert Spencer. Mr. Spencer, thank you so much for your time.
Thank you.
You just heard our discussion there with Philip Mudd, and you heard our reporting from overseas. You have this new threat, if you will, of more violence coming from ISIS. In part, they say future attacks are going to be harsher and they're going to be worse. Are you guys having second thoughts now about future events in light of this?
No, I think that this only underscores the necessity to continue to hold events like this, to show that we will not be cowed, we will not curtail our activities, we will not be intimidated, we will not bow to violent intimidation. What they want to do is force us to obey Sharia blasphemy laws, which mandate death for those who insult Islam or Muhammad. Now, if you are not a Muslim, you do not believe in Sharia blasphemy laws. And in a pluralistic society, we have to get along with one another and put up with offense to our core beliefs by those who do not hold them. That's a necessity if the society is going to be really pluralistic. And so if we kowtow to this and we curtail our activities and we say, okay, Muhammad and Islam, they're off limits, then we are just aiding and abetting the ISIS agenda, and that is surrender.
Do you feel like your event in Texas on Sunday night was a success?
Absolutely, it was a success. It was a success because we made the point that we were not going to bow, we were not going to surrender, we were not going to submit. And the Garland police did a stellar job in stopping the jihadis.
Do you feel like the fact that there was violence proved the point you were trying to make?
Oh, it certainly does. Absolutely.
So are you looking, by holding more events, then I suppose you could continue to say, are you looking for more violence to keep on making this point?
Of course not. That's a ridiculous idea. What we are
Robert,
trying to do...
I've seen it written, though. You said you're not going to bow, you're not going to stop, you're not going to... This proves the point that you need to have more of these events. The question has been posed, and I want to get your take on it, that if your event was... If the intent was to serve as bait, it worked. Is that what you guys were intending?
No. The intent was to stand on our feet and say, we are not going to submit. We are not going to bow to you. And we're going to continue to do that. We don't want any violence. We are not the ones who are committing the violence. We are not inciting the violence. The ones who are inciting the violence are the ones who are on Twitter saying you have to go kill people who draw cartoons. They're just cartoons.
I think there is no question that you were the target here. There is no question that it was an event that was well within your free speech rights in this country. We can draw what we want to draw.
Do you change plans, though, now, in light of the violence, in light of a future threat? Do you change plans for your event? I want to put this out here right now. There's a lot of talk, even debate over, is this event controversial or not? We're not going to debate here if you have a right to be holding this event. You have the right to be holding this event. We're not going to debate here if there if violence is okay in light of this event. Absolutely not. I don't even want to debate the line between free speech and provocation. I want to talk to you and get your take in light of the fact that there was violence attempted at your event and you want to hold more events. Do you now need to change plans, very realistically, not using the bully pulpit here?
Well, we have to take adequate security measures. And we did at Garland. The jihadis were stopped. They wanted to replicate the Charlie Hebdo jihad massacre and kill massive numbers of people. They were not able to get into the building. The Garland police did a tremendous job. We are going to have that kind of security and more in the future.
Well, there certainly is at least one police officer there who sure knows how to use a service revolver.
Yeah, we owe him a great debt of gratitude.
Robert Spencer, thanks so much for being with us.
Have you met him? Have you spoken to him?
We're trying to catch him now.
Great. Robert Spencer, thanks so much.
Thank you so much.
And now it's time for everybody's favorite segment,
Quizzing Iris.
That's right. I actually was able to get Iris out of bed. I know I mentioned earlier on in the episode that she's sick, but Iris, how are you feeling?
Not too bad.
Not too bad? Oh, that's good. It's good to see that you're feeling a little bit better. So, do you think that you're well enough to do a quiz?
Yep.
You're pretty confident that you know Islam pretty well?
No.
No? Okay, well, the quiz is, what is Islam? Or test your knowledge of Islam, I'm sorry. So, it's 10 questions. I have a feeling... Now, you've done pretty good in the past. I mean, you normally get over 50%. You normally get a passing grade. So, what do you think you're going to get on this one? What percentage?
30?
30%? So that's 3 questions correct out of the 10. We'll see how you do. Okay, ready. Question number 1. All of the following are prophets in Islam except Jesus, Moses, Elijah Muhammad, Abraham, or Adam.
Abraham?
Abraham? This quiz will let you know if you got the answer correct or wrong. And no, incorrect. The correct answer is Elijah Muhammad, who I don't even think is a real person. Question number 2. Hadith is... You know what a hadith is, don't you?
No.
Hadith is a verse from the Quran, the first wife of the Prophet Muhammad, a verified statement or saying of the Prophet Muhammad, or the name of an angel.
Name of an angel?
The name of an angel. Let's see. Ooh, incorrect. It is a verified statement or saying of the Prophet Muhammad. Not doing so good so far. Question number 3. All of the following are pillars of Islam except fasting, prayer, prophethood, charity, or pilgrimage.
Fasting?
Fasting? Let's see. I have a feeling that is one of the pillars of Islam, but you could be right. Oh, incorrect. The correct answer is prophethood. So they just don't want you to be a prophet. Question 4. The difference between Sunni and Shia Islam is a doctrinal difference of the meaning of Allah, a disagreement on the issue of leadership, a disagreement about the role of the Prophet Muhammad, or a disagreement about how battles should be waged.
A disagreement on the issue of leadership.
A disagreement on the issue of leadership. You know, I think that's what I would have said too. Correct! It is a disagreement on the issue of leadership. So you got one. One so far. Question number 5. In Islam, Mary is... Why did you just shrug? You don't know who Mary is?
Not in Islam. I don't know the Islam religion. I don't know anything about it.
In Islam, Mary is the mother of a figure who started a religious cult, a revered figure and virgin who miraculously gave birth to Jesus, a woman who claimed she gave birth to God's only son, or a historical figure who has no role in Islam.
A historical figure who has no role in Islam.
Okay, but we all know that Mary is actually the mother of a figure who started a religious cult. No. A revered figure and virgin who miraculously gave birth to Jesus. But that's not the one you're going with? Oh, you were incorrect. The answer is a revered figure and virgin who miraculously gave birth to Jesus. That's the one you were going to say?
Yes.
Why didn't you? Never second guess yourself. Always go with your gut. Number 6. The word Islam means justice and peace, peace achieved through submission to God, peace achieved through submission to the Prophet's message, or the spread of peace around the world.
Peace achieved through submission to the Prophet's message. Sorry.
The Prophet's message. Let's see. Incorrect. The answer is peace achieved through submission to God. You're not doing so good.
No, these are hard.
Question number 7. Islam's holiest city is... Oh, come on, you should know this one. Maybe not. Islam's holiest city is Medina, Mecca, Jerusalem, Baghdad, or Monaco.
Jerusalem.
Jerusalem? Are you sure that's not, like, the Jewish... I'm pretty sure it's Mecca. Oh, yeah, you're incorrect. The answer is Mecca. Just as I and every person listening to this suspected. Question number 8. The Hajj pilgrimage was originally started by Muhammad, Moses, Abraham, Joseph, or Adam.
Muhammad.
And let's see if you are correct. Incorrect. The answer is Abraham. Damn, so you have to get these next two right in order to hit your 30%. You think you can do it?
Yeah.
Yeah, pretty confident. All right. Let's see. Question number 9. Allah is the name of a distinct God that only Muslims worship, the name of God in Arabic, the name of God in Aramaic, or a revered prophet in Islam.
The name of God in Arabic.
In Arabic? Ooh, you might be right. Correct! Yes. The name of God in Arabic. All right. Yes. So there's one. You got now. Last question. You have to get this one right to hit your 30%. I'll consider this a passing grade if you get it.
Okay.
Number 10. Jihad means holy war, the inner struggle one endures to practice Islam, the physical struggle necessary to make Islam the world's dominant religion, or victory in the name of Islam.
Victory in the name of Islam.
Ooh. Tell you what, I'll give you one chance. You can change your answer or you can stay with your answer. I don't know the answers to these either. I have an idea of what they might be, but you pretty confident in that? You want to change your answer? You want to stick with it?
I'll stick with it.
You're going to stick with it. I don't even want to click this. You know what? I think it is the inner struggle one endures to practice Islam. That's what I think. We could both be wrong. Let's see. Incorrect. It's the inner struggle one endures to practice Islam.
Why didn't you tell me?
I did tell you.
Yeah, but you told me after I was allowed to switch it. That's your fault. It's your fault. Not mine. I won.
Keep going. All right, guys, let's get into some Roscoe's Bible reading right here on the Rosco Show. Check it out. Phicol was the commander of Abimelech's forces in Gerar. He and Abimelech said to Abraham, God is always with you. He speaks to you often. Swear to us before God that you will not betray us or our descendants, that you will show us the same kindness that we have shown you. I swear, replied Abraham. Then he complained about a well that Abimelech's servants had seized. This is the first I have heard of this, said Abimelech. Abraham gave Abimelech sheep and cattle, and the two of them made a treaty. Abraham set apart 7 ewe lambs from the rest of the flock, and when Abimelech saw this, he asked Abraham, Why did you set apart these 7 ewe lambs by themselves? Accept these 7 lambs as a witness that I dug this well, replied Abraham. The treaty was made at Beersheba. Abimelech and Phicol, the commander of his forces, went to the land of the Philistines. Abraham planted a tamarisk tree in Beersheba and called upon the name of God. He stayed in the land of the Philistines.
Here's an excerpt from Our Constitution, The Way It Was, by Dr. Madeleine O'Hare.
Seemingly, no one knew just what to do. There was no clear-cut program. Some wanted to try to continue to negotiate with the British government. Others wanted to continue the armed revolt in the hopes of forcing the king and parliament to remedy their grievances. There was no one, apparently, who had the vision to call for complete severance of all political ties with Britain and to found a new nation. The situation remained stalemated until the end of the year. Then, in January 1775, Thomas Paine's pamphlet, Common Sense, came off the press. It was like a fresh wind clearing away a fog. In the simple yet forceful language that characterizes all his writings, Paine showed the absurdity of continuing a relationship of colonies to a mother country. Why, he asked, should the colonies, already peopled with 3 million inhabitants and destined to expand to cover a vast continent, be ruled from a small island 3,000 miles away? Why continue to be subjects of a tyrant king when the way was open to be citizens of a free republic? This pamphlet spread like wildfire. The small presses of the time could not keep up with the demand. Hundreds of thousands of copies were issued and penetrated to every colony in a short time. Paine's arguments were unanswerable. They left no middle ground. All talk of compromise and further petitions to Parliament died out. The debate was carried into the Continental Congress, and in a couple of months, a committee was appointed to draw up a formal statement. Thomas Jefferson was selected by the committee to make the draft. 6 months, almost to the day, after Paine's Common Sense appeared, Congress issued that famous document, which we call the Declaration of Independence. It has often been claimed that Paine actually composed and wrote the Declaration. This is debatable, and there seems to be no strong evidence to that effect, but that he was the man, more so than any other, who caused it to be written, no one can deny. All of the leaders of the Revolution gave him full credit for solidifying the sentiment for independence. Washington, converted by Common Sense, wrote asserting that Paine's words were, quote, sound doctrine and unanswerable reasoning. Jefferson, John Adams, Franklin, and Madison all wrote praising Paine's flaming arguments. In later years, Thomas Jefferson said of Paine, quote, no writer has exceeded Paine in ease and familiarity of style, perspicuity of expression, happiness of elucidation, and in simple and unassuming language, end quote. Franklin said, I value myself on the share I had in procuring for America the acquisition of so useful and valuable a citizen as Thomas Paine. John Adams wrote, history will ascribe the Revolution to Thomas Paine.
Our Constitution, The Way It Was by Dr. Madeleine O'Hare is now available at atheistaudiobooks.com.
This is Pastor Jay. If you'd like to become a member of my flock, or if you're just curious about leaving the atheist faith, you can find me at insert links here. Or you can find my links in the show notes to this podcast.
I believe in an America where the separation of church and state is absolute, where no religious body seeks to impose its will, directly or indirectly, upon the general populace.
Let's restore respect for America's secular roots. Help the Freedom from Religion Foundation defend the wall of separation between state and church. Join us at ffrf.org. Freedom depends on freethinkers.
Hi, I'm Mike. I'm a former Jehovah's Witness, and you're listening to The Rosco Show.
Okay, so what about movies? If you had to pick one movie to watch for the rest of your life, what would it be?
Oh my goodness. Probably A Walk to Remember.
Oh, is that a chick flick?
Oh, it totally is.
Oh, okay, I've never seen it. Hey, Iris, have you ever seen A Walk to Remember? Of course you have. Okay, she's seen it. Okay, what about music? If I was to hop in your car right now and hit play on the CD player, what would I hear?
Celine Dion.
Really?
Yeah. I grew up on that. It's one of those things.
Wow, and she's Canadian too, so represent.
Oh, you're Canadian?
Yeah, you can't tell?
I thought I could tell. I totally tell.
Oh, okay.
We're in the same time zone, though, so you're just, like, sitting on top of me or something, right?
Yeah, pretty much, yeah. So, we're going to do some name association.
Okay.
If you don't know them, just let me know, and I'll just... Okay?
Okay.
Oh, man. Are you familiar with a lot of important figureheads in Islam? Or do you kind of just know the text?
A fair amount. Fair amount.
Fair amount? Okay, so are you familiar with... And forgive me, I'm probably going to pronounce this incorrectly. Abdullah bin Abdulaziz?
No.
Okay.
Is this like people that you would associate with like political stuff of our current time?
Well, this guy is the current king of Saudi Arabia right now, which is like the biggest Muslim country in the world, as far as I know, anyways. I could be wrong about that. Somebody can fact check me on that. You know what? I don't know how to pronounce his name either. The former president of Iran, Mohammed Ahmadinejad.
No. Okay, so I don't know a whole lot about political leaders and stuff in this current day and age. I know more of like Muslim speakers and things like that, particularly people like Western people, and then like people that were influential to the Prophet and things like that.
Okay. Well, I don't have any of those on my list here. So, what about like Donald Trump?
Interesting guy. I wish him the best. I don't know. I don't know him personally, so I can't really say much about him, and I try not to have too many harsh judgments of people.
Would you be happy if he won the presidential election?
Probably not.
Okay. Are you familiar with Theo Fango?
Nope.
Okay.
Who is that?
Well, he was actually... Well, we were talking earlier about people depicting Muhammad. He was one of the guys who kind of got the brunt of that. So basically he put out some cartoons in I think it was a British newspaper. And yeah, people didn't like that too much, and he actually got killed. So I wasn't sure if you're familiar with that story or not. No, I have an opinion on that. Not cool.
Yeah, it's really unfortunate.
Yeah.
It is.
Alright, Muhammad.
Muhammad was an awesome guy. For real awesome. So, if you love the character of Jesus, I mean, besides what you believe about him, he obviously was a man of character. Muhammad was absolutely a man of character. He's a great person to study, even if you don't become a Muslim or anything like that. Just the way he lived his life, the way he treated people. He was a really awesome guy.
Okay, perfect. Is there anything you want to promote? You mentioned a website earlier on in the episode. What was that website?
A website that really helped me out at the beginning of kind of my journey was called MuslimConverts.com. And it's actually kind of what led me to Islam. I was just kind of curiously researching it, and I happened to come across this website like a day before I left for my vacation to go to Costa Rica to study yoga. And I printed off like a stack of like 2 or 3 inches or something of just endless articles touching on pretty much every everything you can imagine in Islam. And so I was just reading this on the plane, and I was amazing myself at like how much I couldn't stop reading it. And I was like, this is the most beautiful thing I've ever seen. And it's just so all encompassing and so applicable and practical to like life and how to live it, things like that. So yeah, I would definitely check that out. Just if you're just curious and have no intention of converting or anything like that. So, yeah,
oh, okay.
I just promote that.
Perfect. At this point in time, so you're pretty deep into your Muslim faith then?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I would say so.
Is there anything that would ever change your mind, or anything that might lead you to a different path or a different religion?
Nope. For me, all the puzzle pieces of my kind of 3.5, 4 years of seeking, and I made a list of all the different spiritual teachers and religions that I've looked into, and it's over 20, like 25 or something like that. And to me, it just couldn't be any more clear. And I feel really settled and convicted in what I believe in, and I don't believe I will go astray from it, no.
Oh, okay. And just really quickly, when it comes to the Quran, do you take every single story in that book to be absolutely 100% literal, or do you think that there might be some stories that are just parables, or maybe stories that are just contain metaphors in them?
So I haven't, like
just for example, like Muhammad had a flying horse with a human head named Barak. So, like, do you think that was just metaphorical, or do you think that there like literally was a flying horse with a human head at one point? And I know you could say that, you know, God's capable of anything, but I just wanted your opinion on that.
I haven't actually read that story, so I couldn't really speak much on it because I don't understand like the context of the story, and I'm not a scholar or anything like that. But I do know that the Prophet spoke a lot in stories, you know, he would teach people through stories and things like that. So I definitely think metaphor and parable are definitely possible in the Quran. And
okay.
Yeah, so. I wish I knew more. I'm such a baby in this.
I wish I knew more too, to be honest with you. We could have made this a very, very interesting interview, but we're both kind of, I know you know way more about it than I do, but...
Yeah, you've caught me in my infancy, I admit. I'm trying to just come off as competent as I can with what I do know, and this is my first opportunity I've ever had to speak about any of my journey openly in some type of, you know, radio show or anything like that. So I'm open to, like, you know, answering more people's questions and talking a little bit more about my personal path. I left out a lot of details, but, you know, it's been long and interesting and really hard and all sorts of things, but beautiful at the same time. So.
Oh, okay, perfect. Would you ever come back on the show, maybe like a couple years from now, if I'm still around?
Yeah,
Yeah,
I'd be happy to. Yeah.
And we can kind of do like an update on your on where you are where you are with it. That would be awesome.
I kind of take that as a challenge, you know, up my studies a little more. And no, but that's a natural thing. There's so much to know. I mean, really, it's infinite, the amount of knowledge you can have on Islam. I mean, people dedicate their whole lives to it, you know, just doing that, and even still don't know everything. So, yeah.
Well, I've read the Bible more than once, actually, and I still don't know everything about it. Sometimes I'll go in there and I'll start reading some of the Bible, and I'll read something I felt I've never read before, even though I know I've read it before. So it's just, you just got to keep up on that stuff, right? So,
do you find it confusing, the Bible? Or are there parts of it that are very clear and parts of it that are just like, what is this?
I guess it depends what book I'm reading in the Bible.
Mm-hmm.
I know they say that when they formed the King James version of the Bible, the reason they had to take certain books out was because it wasn't linear. Well, it's not linear right now when I read it. They keep going back and forth and everything else. So sometimes I might read like half a book before I realize, oh, they're talking about past events. And so, yeah, I definitely get confused when I read it. But for the most part, I think I have a pretty good understanding of what's going on in it when I read it.
Cool. I've read like Genesis and Exodus, I want to say. And then like parts of other stuff, but...
Oh, those are the easy ones, in my opinion.
I don't say anything about it.
Yeah, Genesis and Exodus, those are the easy ones. Those are like easy enough to understand, in my opinion, but...
Yeah, it's a lot of names.
Yeah, and you know what? There was a video we were watching, And it was going from the lineage from Adam to Noah, and it's only about 7 names. And I was watching it with my friends, and as the names came up, I was naming them before they came up. My friends were looking at me like, what the hell? It's like, hey man, I read the Bible. I know some of these names, so...
So you're agnostic, right? Is that what you consider yourself?
Yeah, I'll use that. Agnostic, yes.
Okay. Yeah, you're pretty well versed in some of these different texts. It's interesting.
I'm fascinated by religion. And I'm fascinated by religious people. So that's kind of why, like a lot of podcasts I listen to, they're like, atheist podcasts, and they have on believers just so that they can debate with them, just so they can argue with them. In some instances, they bring people on that they don't even know they're going to have a debate, which some of the shows I listen to, they have the name debate in the title of the show. But sometimes I feel like the people get caught off guard, and they get asked questions that are impossible to answer, even coming from their perspective. And basically what I want to do with my show is have those same people on, but let them talk. Sure, I'm going to ask them some of the hard questions, but I'm not going to interrupt and tell you you're wrong, or argue with you, or try and, like, you know, back you into a corner or anything like that. So that's kind of what I was doing, was like, well, tell you what, here's a show where we have on believers that is not in essence an atheistic podcast, where we're going to have them on and I'm just going to ask them questions and just learn more about their beliefs and their religions and their opinions and their background and everything. So that's why I do what I do.
Yeah, that's really nice. I like your approach a lot.
Oh, thank you very much. I appreciate that. Okay, Melissa, is there anything else that you'd like to promote, or any questions for me, or any final words that you'd like to say to my listeners?
I guess all I have to say is just try and keep an open mind with people. I don't want to delve out advice to anybody, but I feel like part of, I don't know, if I could stand for anything, it would just be tolerance, you know, and just have an open mind.
You heard her. Remember to keep an open mind. That's literally the final words I say at the end of every single episode, is remember to keep an open mind. So perfect. Thank you so much for coming on the show, Melissa.
Oh, you're welcome. Thank you so much for having me.
You have a great day.
You too.
That is it for this episode, guys. I want to thank my guest, Melissa the Muslim, for coming on and having that conversation with me. I think that took a lot of courage. She told me that was the first time she's ever really talked openly about her Muslim faith. So kudos for that. I really, really appreciate that. What do you guys think of the new format of the show? Do you like it? Is it better than before? Worse than before? It's a little bit shorter, but not by much. Yeah, if you have an opinion on the new format, or if you have an opinion on the show just in general, hit me up. www.theroscoshow.com. Fill out that contact information, shoot me an email, and I will definitely 100% email you back. You can find me on Twitter now. I'm now on Twitter, on the Twitter web, on the Twitterverse, whatever you want to call it. Twitter.com/The Rosco Show. I'm on Facebook, Facebook.com/The Rosco Show. I am on iTunes. The link to that is on the website. I am on Stitcher. And, of course, I'm on Spreaker. And am I on anything else? I have a YouTube channel if you want to check that out. All these episodes are also available on my channel, which is The Rosco Show, youtube.com/user/The Rosco Show. I can't talk right now. What the hell? Something I want to bring up. I find this very important, and I don't really give my opinion too much on the show, but this time, the end of this episode specifically, I have to say something. There's a reason I don't argue with my guests. I don't disagree with them. It's because, what's the point? If I disagree with them, or if I get angry at a statement they make, me pouring out my emotions on them is not going to be productive. Not for me, not for them, not for my audience, not for anybody. I'm not going to change their opinion. I'm not going to change their mind. And vice versa, they're not going to do that to me either. So, instead, my approach is to get as much out of my guests as I can. Why? I'm fascinated with them. I'm fascinated with people's beliefs, people's religious beliefs, ideas of the afterlife, ideas of God, How did we get here? All these things. And you know what? There's people out there that say, these questions are useless. Don't ask these questions. Who cares? I do. I'm fascinated by them. It's not a logical argument. It's an emotional argument. I'm doing everything I can to understand it. Even though I don't fully understand it, I can still read it. I can still look into it. I can still ask questions about it. And I can still be fascinated by it. And that's what I do. And that's what this show is all about. A few people have brought to my attention that the methods on this show, with the methods that I use on this show, that I will not be accepted into the atheist community. I don't give a shit about that. I do not care about that. I'm not looking for acceptance into any form of community. I'm just doing my own thing. I'm not going to be an asshole towards religious people, and I'm not going to challenge their beliefs. And if this means that I won't be accepted into some movement, then I don't want to be a part of that fucking movement. Who cares? I'll start my own damn movement. It'll be called the Rosco movement. Iris, you can be the first member if you want. In this movement that I'm going to start, which I'm not actually going to start a movement, but if I did, it would be one where everybody just tries to understand each other. Even if some people think other people are batshit crazy. Who cares? Okay? They say you can't change someone by telling them to change. You have to set an example. Maybe I will be that example. Sorry for the rant, guys. Until next time, remember to keep an open mind. Peace.
law, I feel like that's something you want to talk about. We could briefly touch on it, and I will just basically explain that, much of my journey has been, I'm still in my infancy of educating myself about some of the more, I guess, societal things that Islam speaks about. It's been more of an internal kind of journey thus far. So I haven't touched a lot on Sharia law. All I do really know about it is that true Muslims don't even call it Sharia law, and that it's pretty much a justice system.